you can see on the screen right now, we have Life on the Missouri River coming up, Armchair Travel with John Lynn, and we have another program on September 29th, Monarch Migration. You've probably been hearing a lot about that this time of year, and you won't want to miss Lisa Sun's program on that on the 29th. And so you may have heard us talking to each other with our co-hosts, Meg Overrocker and with Natalie, about how we were having a little Zoom problem tonight. So we haven't had one program yet that didn't have some issue, and it seems like everyone is different. So please bear with us. We're all learning this. If you have a gold rectangle someplace on your screen, you got me on that one. We'll have to solve that after this program. And so without further ado, we will be recording this program so that you will be able to use it again on our website and on social media. And now, Meg, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Donna. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Give me just a moment. I wanted to share with you just a couple of slides. Let me see if I can get to it here. Sorry, all. Bear with me, please. Okay. Hopefully, and on your screen, I just wanted to talk a few things about University of Illinois Extension before we get going with Natalie's program tonight. And first of all, as Donna said, my name is Meg Overrocker with University of Illinois Extension for the Master Gardener and the Master Naturalist programs. And that is for Bureau, LaSalle, Marshall, and Putnam County of U of I Extension. Just a couple of things I wanted to go over tonight. Zoom webinar orientation. Just a reminder to please keep your microphones and your video off. In order to get the best view, you can go to full screen and select speaker view. You also can ask questions at any time via the chat function, and I'll show you where those things are here in a minute. We will answer all questions at the end of or rather Natalie will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. And as Donna said, this presentation is being recorded and it will be available afterwards via link on the library website. So for the chat function, you are looking towards the bottom of your screen. Whoops. Sorry about that. There should be a little chat box and you can click on that and end when the program is over and you want to exit, you can click on the end button there in the lower right hand corner, and that will get you out of the program and disconnect you. For the mute and the microphones, you should see, you should see a microphone. It's probably in your lower left, and if you click on that, you can mute and unmute, and also start and stop video is right next to that. So the University of Illinois Extension is the flagship outreach effort of U of I Champaign-Urbana, and it offers educational programs to residents of all of the counties here in our great state. In particular, I just wanted to make a note on our Master Gardener program. Natalie, of course, is our University of Illinois Extension Master Gardener in LaSalle County, and this is a program that helps educate people about gardening practices, and we provide educational programming and just assist the general public with any questions they might have related to horticulture. Our Master Naturalist program, whom you will meet one of our Master Naturalist volunteers for the Monarch Migration program in October, or at the end of this month. The mission of this program is to provide science-based educational opportunities that connect people with nature So this program is really to educate and train adult volunteers so that they can share natural resource information with people through educational programs, and they also do a lot of work in environment. That is my contact information. If you're interested in what these programs can do for you, or if you're interested in becoming a Master Gardener or a Master Naturalist, I'm located in the LaSalle County Extension Office in Ottawa, and that is my phone number and email there. We also have other county offices in Princeton, Henry, and Oglesby. And there's also some links, if you would like, that you can visit right here. If you want to see all the programs that are offered through U of I Extension, you can just type in extension.illinois.edu, and that should bring it up. If you want to learn about the Master Gardener program or how to become a volunteer, same thing except to do /MG, or excuse me, /. And with the Master Naturalist program, you can go to the same thing except /MN, or you can visit our Bureau LaSalle, Marshall, and Putnam unit webpage at the same extension.illinois.edu /BL. I'll show these links again here at the end of the program. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. It's going a little crazy tonight, and hand it over to
Okay, here I am. I'm going to show you my face so that you know what I look like. Hello, everybody. It always feels better when you know who's talking to you a little bit, especially when you have to listen to me for 30 minutes. Now you can see what my face looks like. As Donna and Meg both said, I'm Natalie Martin. I'm a volunteer with the Master Gardener program out of LaSalle County with the University of Illinois Extension. And some of you, if you guys are returning guests to my series of really enthusiastic gardening presentations, we've done a few here with the library. So thank you if you're someone that's returning. But I really love just hearing the sound of my voice and talking. But I also love sharing kind of my enthusiasm for gardening and for being outside and growing things with people. So thanks so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about bulbs. And gardening with bulbs. And this is meant for beginners. So if you are like, you might be bored if you've gardened with bulbs before, we're gonna go from everything, what a bulb looks like and why it's different, all the way up to how to plant them and how to plan them out in your garden. So we're gonna kind of cover those basics. If you wanna ask me why your tulips are not performing the best, I can definitely get back to you on those things. But this is definitely for more beginners rather than anything else. So we'll jump right in, and feel free, as Meg said, if you have questions during and you don't want to forget, you can definitely put them in the chat box and I will get to them. Donna and Meg will help me get to them afterwards. I'm going to jump over really quick to where I got all of my content from, and that is the Extension website. The University of Illinois Extension and a lot of other state extensions have their own website that covers all sorts of different gardening topics. This is our page about bulbs. So this is where I got a lot of my content, and then a lot of my pictures came from the Old Farmer's Almanac. So you can go through everything from, and we'll talk about some of this stuff tonight, but everything on here, including where to buy from or suggestions on where to buy from. So let's get cruising. I brought some, before I kind of turn my camera off so you don't get distracted by my face, I did bring some bulbs tonight so you can know if you haven't ever planted with bulbs or you've never seen a bulb, this is what one looks like. And I wonder, I don't know how to make my face big so that you can see this, but if you look at my picture, you can see some of the things that set a bulb apart from other plants. A lot of times when you're buying plants, you're buying a live, actively growing plant. But this is kind of ugly, right? You look at this and you think, how could this ever be something that I would want in my garden? It's kind of dried out, it's flaky, there's papery stuff coming off the outside. But all of this is very necessary for this bulb to live. This bulb, hopefully, right, if everything goes correctly, is going to turn into this daffodil. This is a Tahiti daffodil. And this is a box of bulbs that I got at Home Depot. You can source your bulbs from all over the place. And they come in a variety of prices depending on how specific and how specialty you want your products to be. But these you'll see, different boxes like this you'll see around at Home Depot, sometimes even Aldi's. They kind of come seasonally. But the reason that we're talking about these right now, I'm going to get ahead of myself. The reason we're talking about them now is because this is the time you want to plant your spring bulbs. And we'll get into what that means. But so that's why we're doing this in the fall. Some of you might be like, it's over. It's already almost fall in next week. Why are we talking about this? But because this is when you want to plant your spring bulbs. So I'll jump back a little bit. Why are bulbs different? So a bulb, a true bulb, which there's some things that are bulb-like, a true bulb contains every part of the plant in this. It's not like a seed where a seed will plant or you'll have to put it in the ground and then a plant will grow from it and the leaves and everything will be from it. This will contain every part of the plant. So I'll turn off my face for a little while and then I'll jump back on later. But when you're talking about, every part of the plant is contained in this bulb. So the primary functions of these are to store all of its bonus material, its energy, its food supply underground to ensure nutrient reserves and everything like that, ensure the plant's survival. So that's kind of how a bulb is different. You can see these are some crocus bulbs that are up on the screen here, or I'm sorry, tulip bulbs up on the screen. On the right are some hyacinths, and we'll talk about the different kinds of bulbs and what you can grow later. But bulbs can be broken down into 5 types of storage structures. And this is the kind of boring zone out part, but there's true bulbs, which are kind of what we talked about earlier. Corms, which we'll talk about and I'll show you a picture of. Tubers, which is like a potato. Tuberous roots, which could be like a daylily. I'm sorry, tuberous roots are a little bit different, and then rhizomes. And then they also have a 6th category, which is fleshy roots. And if you've ever dug up your daylilies to separate them, that's, they have a more fleshy root. A tuberous, another one that would be more tuberous would be, like tuberous root would be like an iris maybe. But peonies and daylilies are those fleshy roots. So then we're gonna, as we cruise forward, here's some different types and how they look different. I'm gonna pop my face back on my screen here and show you some different, I have 3 different kinds of bulbs and I'll show you the different pictures, but this is an allium bulb and that's gonna be in your onion family. So you can look and see that it looks a little bit like an onion or a head of garlic. Garlic is a bulb of garlic. So this is an allium plant and this is what it's gonna look like, but it grows from this bulb of almost garlic because it's related to the same exact family. So I thought I'd show you one of those so you kind of had that mental picture of what it's going to relate to. And then we talked about our daffodils here. And then we've got these cute little tiny ones, these crocuses, and they're gonna grow from this tiny little one over here. Gladiolus, and I'll show you some pictures before, that's going to be an example of a corm. And that's what this on the right-hand side of your screen. A corm is going to have this kind of like more flat, oblong, squat shape to it. And you can see the different formations of how it's supposed to look and how a healthy corm would look versus a non-healthy corm. Some of us are maybe a little bit more of the see what we get kind of a camp, and we wouldn't be, even if we got some bad corms in our box of bulbs, we're still going to plant them and see what happens. So that's kind of where I'm at. So here's those tuberous in the middle here, dahlias, and dahlias are an example of a summer bulb. So that's going to be a delicate bulb, and we'll talk about that later. But this is going to be a tuberous root here. And the plant buds grow right here out of the top, and then it has these tuberous roots that stretch out from here. And here's a tunicate bulb. And these ones, you can see it's more similar to an onion. And this is going to have your corm, or your roots here at the bottom, and then it's going to go up and a plant's going to grow out of the top up here. So and tunicate bulbs have that papery covering. That's going to be like that daffodil that we talked about. It's going to be like an onion that you can even just buy from the store. So those are going to be examples of tunicate bulbs. And then true bulbs are things like, I don't know, tulips, things like that. And then, you know, the things like daffodils, like the ones that we had here, they can form and shoot off new bulbs from this original bulb. So they would shoot off and develop a new bulb. So you can grow multiple, you know, planting one bulb can develop into more plants over time. So I don't think we want to go into too many of the actual details of what, you know, this is a beginner one. So we're going to go more general and surface rather than breaking down what separates a corm from a tuber from a tunicate bulb. I think that's going to be, it would be over my head if I was new to bulbs. But I referenced gladiolus, and this is a picture of a gladiolus on your screen. And this is going to be considered a summer flowering bulb. And so summer flowering bulbs, and you'll see them, they'll show up in the store just in these boxes, just like I showed you. And they're going to show up in the spring because you'll plant them in the spring. They're going to flower in the summer, and they're going to go into a dormant period when it starts to cool off. Now, these will not overwinter. These will not last through the cold winter here in Illinois. So you have a couple options. You can do what I do because I'm lazy, and you can just let them die off and kind of they'll rot and become part of the soil. There's almost no chance that they will grow back. Obviously some winters are more mild than others, so there's always hope, you know, that your gladiolus or your other summer bulbs will come back, but most likely in these Illinois winters they will not come back. So you can let them die off, or you can dig them up and keep them in your garage, your basement, somewhere where it's not going to get cold, it's not going to frost. And even some bulbs really don't even like to be cold at all. If they even start to get cold, they're like, nah, I don't want that at all. And so you dig them up. So you're going to wait until their vegetation starts to die off and kind of shrivels away, turns brown, and you'll trim off that top vegetation and you'll dig it up and you'll get off you can leave soil on some of them, but most of them you don't want wet soil on them because they will start to rot. But you can, but there are some bulbs, and you'll have to just individually, you'll have to look up and do your research on which type you have. But some, they don't want you to store them in soil. Some you do. These are dahlias on the left here. And those you are going to want to store in soil so that they kind of are protected. And you can just keep them in a paper bag in your garage. You do not want them to get wet. You want them in a place, a lot of people will take one of those handled shopping bags, like from a department store, has the paper handles on it, paper bag with handles, and they'll just hang it from the ceiling of their garage or from the wall on a wall hook. And that keeps them out of the way, keeps them protected, and they're ready to stay there all winter. You don't want to just kind of do that and forget about them, because you want to check them, make sure there's not too much moisture, make sure that they're not rotting, make sure that they're looking good throughout the winter. But, most of the time, if you, cut them off, you dig them up, you cut them off, the plants, and you put them in this bag, they should stay over winter and kind of go into a hibernation mode. And then you can plant them again in the spring. Now, when to plant them again in the spring, you don't want it to be, after your last frost state. And you'll follow your planting instructions depending on the plant, but you want it to be out of range of frost. You can see these dahlias on the left have started to green out. So that's a good sign. That means they lasted through the winter, and they're able to be planted again. And you can plant them whether you know for sure that they're alive or not, because again, it's gardening. You're rolling the dice every time. You do want to, as you do it more and more and winter after winter, they will definitely, you'll get to see what is good, what you'll get your system down, when to dig them up, when to, how to store them, things like that. And everybody's system is going to be different depending on your, how your setup is at home. So those are summer bulbs. Those are going to be, and again, like if you're a beginner gardener, if you're beginning bulbs, if you plant them in the spring and they grow and you get joy from them all summer and then you want to let them die off, okay, do it. No big deal. You're not hurting anybody. But spring bulbs, which I guess would be what I think most people associate with bulbs. These are your tulips, daffodils. We've got iris down here, crocus in the middle. These are snowdrops. Hyacinths, and then this is that allium. These are, I think, what people mostly associate with bulbs. And when you say spring flowering, that means they're going to flower in the spring, and you have to plant these in the fall. That's why I reference that we're having this program right now. This is the time to start planning which bulbs you're going to get. If you haven't already ordered them, you can order them. You can find them at any hardware store. You can get them at a garden center. I'm trying to think of who I just saw is doing, Morton Arboretum is doing a bulb sale right now. They do it all the way through October. And you can plant your bulbs right up until that first frost stage. And obviously in Illinois, that's different every year. So you just want to make sure that the reason that these bulbs need to be planted in the fall is they need to have a sustained cold period in order to grow and bloom in the spring. So that's why you want to make sure you get them in the fall so they can have that cold winter. It changes it's just like how some, pine trees, they cannot sprout, they cannot seed unless they have gone through a fire. It's just every plant is different, and that's how these spring bulbs are. So you can do it just like with summer bulbs where you dig them up and store them. Year after year, you can dig them up after they have gone into their dormant period. And that's going to be after, when summer starts. When the vegetation dies off, you can cut it off just like we talked about with those summer bulbs. I would say that's a fairly uncommon practice. I would say that most people plant their spring bulbs and then leave them and just let them grow and grow and grow in the same spots year after year. But you can definitely dig them up and transplant them to different locations, separate them out like we talked about with daffodils. They can grow more daffodils off of that main bulb. So you definitely can dig them up, separate them, spread them out. That all works great. If you decided, I need to plant a shrub here, I want to change my planting area, I need to do a different kind of hardscaping, you can move those and plant them in different locations, and that's definitely fine. So that's kind of just a brief, overview about spring bulbs. I'm going to go into a little bit about where to buy them and how to plant them, but that's the main difference. I'm not going to talk as much about summer bulbs because I think, those are pretty self-explanatory. Maybe someday we can do a digging up your bulbs presentation about summer bulbs that'll happen in the fall next year or something. We'll have to see about that. I'll have to study up, make sure I get all my facts right. So obtaining bulbs, I talked about this a little bit. I remember growing up, my mom used to order them from a catalog, and she would pick, they didn't come from Holland. Maybe they came from Holland, Michigan. Who knows? But she would order and go through the catalog and order them from the whole bunch of different varieties. And she would get fringed tulips and all sorts of fancy daffodils and everything like that. A lot of more ordering places are going to be away from catalogs and more towards internet, and you can order them from just about anywhere. Obviously, just like with any product, there's going to be reputable companies, and there's going to be ones that are going to be growing them really fast, maybe not great varieties. I'm not 100% sure. I had ordered some bulbs from an online retailer because I'm going to plant some this fall, some more, and they didn't come in. I was hoping I'd have them in time for this program, so I just bought these ones from the hardware store, like I talked about. And I'm going to turn my camera back on, and I'm going to show you a little bit about when you look at a box, what you're going to look for. So I think that this was $5. It might have been even, I think it was $5. So that's going to have 4 bulbs in it. You want to make sure you look, because that's really how, when you buy it from a place like the hardware store, they're using these mass market. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying they're using a mass market producer that's growing tons and tons and tons and tons of bulbs. So they're not as worried about you getting a good deal, and they're worried about you selling them. So you want to make sure you know that if I buy this for $5, I'm getting 4 daffodils. Whether that's a good price or not, I will leave up to you. Some other things that you can pay attention to when you look at this box. This picture should be, hopefully, the picture of what the daffodil is going to look like. You'll see that Tahiti daffodil, on this one, it's a little concerning because it does not have a variety name, but on the back it says daffodil double Tahiti. And that double name is going to describe what the inside of this flower looks like. You can see it's got extra petals. You can see this daffodil that's on the screen here has just the one cup in the middle, whereas this one has more like a double cup. So that's going to be the description. It's going to talk about that it's a perennial, returns year after year. I'm sorry if that's reversed for you. So that's going to tell you that this is a spring bulb. And then on the back are going to be some planting instructions, just like with any plant that you buy. But it's going to have descriptions about, whether what hardiness zone is. That's also going to tell you whether this is a spring bulb or a summer bulb. We're zone 5. So this is zone 2 to 10. So that's going to be perfect for zone 5. It means that it can get really, really cold. This daffodil can get down to really cold temperatures and still be okay. If it's zone 6 to 10 or something like that, that's going to tell you that it's going to be too hot for you and you do not want it. It'll tell you how to space these apart. Bulbs per square foot is how it's going to tell you. In my opinion, that's confusing. I don't know what square feet. You should tell me about how many inches between. But this says you need 2 bulbs per 6 square feet. So that's, let's see, 6 square feet is, oh man, I'm bad at math. What's 6 square feet, Joe? What's that by what?
2 by 3.
Sorry guys, 2 by 3. So that'd be 2 feet by 3 feet. You would plant 2 bulbs in each one. Sorry guys, I'm really bad at math. It's not where my strengths lie. And it'll tell you where to plant it. This one needs to be planted in full sun or partial shade. That's going to need to get more like 6 to 8 hours of sun every day, if not more. So that's kind of a little bit more information about what, and you can see this looks a little different. It's going to have a little bit different planting instructions because it's a different plant. And when you open the box, this one is just daffodils shoved into the box. But with my alliums, I think I grabbed my alliums, they came in this bag with some cedar or wood chips, things like that. And those are in there for a couple reasons. If you haven't bought bulbs before, that could be a little confusing to you and you might be really worried about what that means. But those those wood chips are providing a couple things. They're providing protection so that this bulb is not getting battered around as much in the box. It's providing temperature control and it's providing moisture control. So that means that this might be a little more moisture sensitive bulb. But those wood chips are going to help with all of that. So no worries. It is messy when you buy them. They're all over my table right now and they're all over my car. So that's more just kind of a little quick note. These are the local, you can get them easily accessible. If you order them from an online retailer or something like that, they might come in a completely different packaging depending on the quantities that you buy them in. So that's more just a quick note about that if you've never purchased bulbs before. I'm going to go ahead and hide my face again. So blooming season, this is kind of, so you want to obtain the bulbs, you're going to buy them, you want to have them in time, especially spring bulbs, you're going to have them in time for fall planting. And then the blooming season is very varied. You can see these crocus right here in my picture are coming up when it's still snowy. That is very indicative of crocus. They will be some of the first, I think snowdrops are actually the first to bloom, and they can bloom in February. And then June, alliums are going to be some of your later ones. Those are going to be in June. So you can get a good, February to June, 4 months of blooming, depending on how you plant and how strategically you plant your spring bulbs. If we return back to the cost analysis here, my alliums were 5 bulbs for $7.98. If you think about that in comparison to your plants that you can buy at a garden center, $7.98 for 5 plants, that's going to be 5 whole plants come spring. So that is a nice thing about bulbs, is that they're fairly affordable. They obviously you have to put in some time investment, but they will pay off in the end. How to plant them, and this is going to be a little tricky. So depending on what you buy, it's going to need to be planted in a different way. You can see on my chart here, this is a great chart from the Farmer's Almanac, and it shows you, how deep the plants are going to grow versus how, and it's not really like a bar graph or anything like that. It doesn't mean like the deeper they grow, the later they'll bloom. Obviously, it's a little bit, it's showing you a variety of different pieces of data on this. So your small, your crocuses and your snowdrops that are going to be your first bloomers, they're also going to be your most shallow. So they're going to start to bloom that first couple inches of soil that starts to thaw. They're going to be the first ones to bloom in that first couple inches of soil, and you don't have to plant them very deep. Whereas your alliums that are going to be blooming later, they're a little bit more sensitive to the temperature. You have to dig down, 8 inches or more into the soil. And when you do prepare your soil, you want, if you have a lot of water sitting around your bulbs while they're, overwintering in the fall, they're going to start to rot. So you want to make sure that your soil is pretty well drained, that any water won't collect and sit around your bulbs. So maybe high clay content is not good. You'll want to add some compost, some peat moss, things like that, organic material. And if you do have to make some soil modifications, soil amendments like that, you'll want to do it to the whole top foot. So you'll want to till pretty far down so that those bulbs have plenty of room to grow their roots and have plenty of area to stretch out and spread out. And so you'll want to make some amendments if your soil is fairly clay heavy and things like that. If you do choose to fertilize, spring and summer bulbs both need phosphorus to encourage their root development. So you can find a lot of the, just everyday fertilizers will have phosphorus, but you can always read the label and it'll let you know whether or not it's good for phosphorus in there. If you want to add other soil amendments and other soil fertilizers, you can add bone meal or like a superphosphate right into the soil rather than fertilizing with a liquid fertilizer, and put it right down in the lower part of the planting bed. And down, as you dig it down, you'll put this bone meal and the superphosphate down in the soil before you start in the lower part of the soil. If you are keeping them year after year in the same area, you will want to add some fertilizer onto that area, because just like with us as humans, if we're staying in the exact same place all the time, we're only going to be able to reach so many things from that one exact location. Here in my chair, I can only reach my glass of water, and once that water's gone, I can't reach a new one, and plants can't get up and move like humans can. So you'll have to continue to provide that plant nutrients so that it can be happy and grow really well in your location that you've chosen. Now, I have not been super great about fertilizing my plants every year. I do kind of add some mulch and things like that, but mine still grow fine. They're pretty tolerant. They're pretty accepting of poor treatment. So it is nice in that way. And when you're selecting a location, we talked about soil, things like that. When you're thinking about the location, each one's going to be different. It's going to depend on if you have something that needs full sun, 6 to 8 hours, more than 8 hours, less than 6 hours. Those kinds of things that will affect the how well they grow, how long they grow, things like that, how well they bloom. If you planted things on if they're on a slope, or if you have, in that early spring sun, the south slope is going to be more direct. So you'll think about that with your with where your plants are located. If they have really high direct south facing slope, they have that direct sun, they're going to bloom faster than your other plants because they're going to get that more direct sun. Now, I'm going to turn my screen on again. You've picked your location, you've got your fertilizer done, and then you're going to plant it. Which direction is up? You might, some of you might be thinking, oh, this is self-explanatory, but if you're really not familiar, you really should. It's not a stupid question, and you want to know. So if you think about it, your roots are going to be coming out of this kind of hairy, rough part that's down at the bottom. So that's going to be the roots need to go down into the ground. And then this is where your plant is going to grow from. So I'll show you on each of my different kinds of bulbs here. I've lost my crocus. Where did it go? Here it is. They're all kind of similar in that you can see where the roots come from. This is the crocus here. But the easy part to usually tell with the bulb is that it's got this little bud where the plant is going to grow out of. It's going to form inside here and shoot out the top. So that's going to be what has to point up towards the sky where the sun's going to be. If you're looking at our tunicate bulb here, our allium, you have your roots. And then this one doesn't have that obvious point up to the top. So this is going to be one of those ones that you might think, oh, here's some plant-like material. This is going to be the top. But these are those roots, those feelers. That's going to go down into the ground. And then you can kind of barely see where this bulb might grow from. So that's going to be where your shoot comes out of and where it's going to grow from. So think about that, and you want to dig the correct depth. Now you can see on this chart, 5 to 8 inches is going to be kind of where you're at. That's going to be really important. If you plant your allium too high up and you don't dig deep enough, it's going to get frosted. It's not going to be deep enough into the ground to insulate it against a cold temperature. So, think about that. You want to make sure that you're following those planting instructions. Really kind of not to the letter, but as well as you can. If you dig down and you kind of run up against some concrete or some gravel or whatever from your foundation of your house, or like mine, I tried to plant some around the base of my brick mailbox, and yeah, you run into some stuff. So you might dig down and then think, oh, well, this isn't going to work because I can't get down into the soil enough. You might wonder if you're overwintering them, do I have to water them? You want to water them following planting, and this is going to help get that soil settled around those bulbs. It's going to provide moisture to the bulbs for them to start rooting, and fall planted bulbs, so those spring bulbs, they need to be rooted before the cold weather starts. So just like I said before, you don't want to overwater them because having lots of moisture sit around the bulb is going to make them rot. But if you water them after you've planted them, and then kind of sporadically water them so that their roots can set in before the really cold temperatures, it's going to make it happen. And then once the plants start to appear in the spring, because hey, we followed all the instructions and we did what we were supposed to do. Once those plants appear, you can water whenever the soil appears dry. You don't want to just water the surface and make the surface wet because bulbs are way down below, right? So you want to make sure that you're soaking them, and make sure that when the soil starts to dry out, that's when you water again. It says, I think my note said 1 inch of water per week if this amount has not been supplied by rainfall. I specifically wrote that down because I didn't feel like I could remember it. 1 inch of water per week if it's not supplied by rainfall. So you want to keep, once the plants start to bloom, you want to put the water down at the base so that those really delicate blooms don't get ruined. Things like alliums can rot if they get too wet. So you want to make sure you're watering at the base of the plant. All right. Once your plants start to die, after they bloomed in the spring, let's see where am I going next here? Once our plants bloom in the spring, if you look at my image here of all my different tulips, you see that a lot of this is this greenery, these plants around below the flower. Once those flowers, they'll shrivel up. You can pull the flower heads off. They won't bloom again. This isn't going to be like an annual that will continue to send up, or it's like coneflowers, for example, which is a perennial. They'll continue to send up more new flowers. This is going to have one bloom every year, and then it's going to be done. And that may seem like kind of a waste, but a lot of people will plant them all together. I'm going to find like here. You can see here in these pictures of tulips. They will plant a whole bunch of tulips all in one section to kind of make that one bloom count, so that it really shows up and shows you how how beautiful these big groups can be. And that's really the benefit of bulbs. So, but once that one bloom dies and then you have your greenery, that greenery is going to start to die away. The foliage will remain, and it should not be cut until it starts to yellow and dies back. So that what's happening when those plants are still there, the leaves are still there, they're still photosynthesizing. They're still feeding the bulb. They're giving it the energy it needs to make energy stores to keep it through another winter. So you don't want to cut down those leaves and ruin the chance of your bulb coming back. So you want to leave the leaves until they start to really become brown and shriveled. So keep that in mind, because that is something that I feel like comes up a lot. When do I cut it? How much do I cut it? And then once you, once you you can really cut it fairly far all the way back. You don't have to leave a certain amount, because a lot of that really important, the base of those leaves is under the ground. So you're not cutting that really important plant material. You're just cutting the leaves back. Things like, and then, I have some notes about staking things like gladiolus have some really, if we want to, gladiolus, alliums, they have these really tall stalks. So once they bloom, they have these really tall stalks. If those have a hard time standing up, you can try to pack the soil a little firmer around the base. And if they still don't stand up, you can stake them. Sometimes we had hyacinths that growing up that used to fall over. Hyacinths are these ones right here. And then, and they would need to be staked in order to kind of be strong enough to make it upright. And then my only last note about planting is mulching. When you plant your bulbs, you should cover it with 2 to 3 inches of mulch. You've got your bulbs in the ground. That mulch is going to provide a couple of important things. It's going to provide moisture retention, moisture control, so it will make it so you don't have to water as often. It will also provide a little bit more insulation for the temperatures. It'll minimize the temperature fluctuation. So instead of ranging so high for the bulb, getting peaks and valleys and things like that, it'll kind of moderate the temperature a little bit. I think that was really, we talked a little bit about how to make these clusters of these planting beds. Each plant is going to be different. A lot of these times, daffodils may need a little bit more space. They're not going to be they're not going to be shoved in as close as maybe these tulips or hyacinths, things like that. But really the planting instructions on your individual package and on your individual plant's going to tell you what you need to do. The only other note that I have is that really variety is great. So you can do these big beds of one color, and that's amazing, but you can also mix in, like these tulips and daffodils here, mix in and really have a nice varied bloom season from February to June. So that would be, I guess, variety is the spice of life. So definitely get out there and start checking around for some plants. And then if we have questions, I can definitely take them right now.
Okay, Natalie, and you do have some questions.
All right.
Okay. First one is, are garages okay to store bulbs? Would a basement be too warm?
Garages are definitely preferable. That's always been what I've seen. If you do have a basement, depending on your basement, it might be a little warm. My basement, I went down there the other day when it's cold outside and I was hot down there. So definitely a garage where your plant can go into a nice dormant phase. That's going to be better than a basement. But, if you have a really crowded garage, a basement might be your best choice. But you definitely are going to want it to be 50 to 60 degrees, not much higher, because you don't want those plants to start to bloom out in the middle of the winter.
Well, my garage gets very cold, so it would be ideal. However, I have another question about that. Mm-hmm. I live out in the country, so we have lots of field mice. Will field mice eat the bulbs?
Probably because we had, I mean, really any rodent's going to try to find just about anything. And we had squirrels and things like that dig up our bulbs all the time. The solution that I would offer to you is to kind of suspend them from the ceiling or something like that. I referenced, paper bag with hooks. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but they wouldn't be able to carry them off for you or things like that. And the harder you make it for them to get them and take them away with them, the more they'll leave them alone. So definitely the suggestion that I had seen was to hang them from your ceiling or something like that.
Okay. Here's a question. Why would one want to force bulbs, and what does that mean?
So when you're forcing any sort of plant, and I'm not an expert on this, and I can definitely get more information, but when you're forcing it, is you are either forcing it to go into a dormancy period, which is a little harder. It would mean that maybe it's you're trying to rush the plant, and that's going to be to make the plant work around your schedule. So you're going to force it either to come out of dormancy faster or go into dormancy faster. The going into dormancy is a lot harder because you don't want to dig up that plant sooner than it's ready. So that would definitely take a little bit of more research, but to force it to come out of dormancy, like you want to get it planted earlier, like it's not, your dahlias don't look ready to plant. You need to start heating them up, things like that, to kind of give them a more, if you wanted to get them in the ground at a certain time and they don't appear to be getting started, then you would want to force them by slowly warming them or putting them in the sun, things like that, to get them to wake up a little faster.
Okay. Any suggestions for plants that aren't spring bulbs to put in bulb beds for year-long interest?
We have had really good, really good success with the mixed. There's like mixed bulb boxes from the hardware store or wherever. And I don't even know what all of them are. We got them at Rural King this last summer, and they come with 4 or 5 different types of bulbs in them sometimes. And so they'll have like 3 or 4 of each one, and you'll plant them all at the same time, but they'll bloom at different times. So those little mix packs really help. They almost always have gladiolus in them. Some of them will have, I wish I knew all the names of them off the top of my head. I should have pulled the tag from the garage. But they usually will have like these mixed packs at the grocery store or the hardware store, and you can plant them all in the spring, and then they'll grow at different times throughout the year. The other option would be at your garden center, definitely asking, about bloom times or paying attention to the bloom times. Just like on these ones, when they say when they're going to bloom, picking ones that are going to bloom in June, July, August. And some of ours, like our gladiolus, bloomed all throughout the month of July and late June and then early August. So you get really, really good success with those.
Okay, kind of along that same line, since the bulbs only bloom once and only one flower, can they be mixed in a bed with annuals and perennials, or are bulbs always kept by themselves?
You can definitely, your tulips and your daffodils will bloom, in spring. And then once they start to die out, your vegetation is still there, but you can plant your annuals right on top or right in mixed among them. So absolutely you can use them as, for added interest throughout the whole year, and then add in your annuals to mix in for a later, longer blooming season.
Okay, and I have a last question, unless anyone who's on wants to put something else in the chat box. My last question is, besides your mailbox, your brick mailbox, can you give us some other little spot interest ideas where we might want to, dip our toe in the water with planting bulbs that, isn't digging up a whole bed, maybe something small?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really going to be dependent on your sun. So what your sun is. I plant around my mailbox because it gets like definite 8 hours of sun. There's not a ton of shade that falls on it. So that's why I planted them all around my mailbox. But if you have any spots that are going to have, especially in spring, your trees are not, they're just starting to bud. They haven't they haven't fully, leafed out yet. So you're going to get more sun around the base of those trees. So that is a common place where I've seen lots of bulbs. It's right at the base of the tree. You can make a little planting bed. You can plant part of it. And that's a really great place to do it. If you have any sort of little, right next to your walkway to your house, your front door, if you have a little area right there, bulbs can really fit anywhere. And just like with things like hostas or whatever, they'll come back, usually, not usually in the same spot, they can't walk away, in the same spot that you planted them year after year. So if you get sun and it grows the one year, it should come back the next year as well, as long as we haven't had a horrific winter or horrific wet season of some kind. But yeah, around my mailbox, right by my front driveway is great. If you don't want to make a whole bed, I have seen people that have almost interspersed them in a little patches in their yard, like their grass. They'll make this little section that has a little mulch area and, little bulbs that grow and things like that, or they'll put if they have a rock feature, sometimes they have those big rocks that were left by the glaciers that came through, and you'll see it in people's yards or whatever. People will plant them around there. So really they'll fit just about anywhere that you have enough sun.
Actually, you said hosta, and that's a question that I meant to ask you.
Yeah.
Are they bulbs? And I know they come back all the time and they keep getting bigger and bigger, my dream. But do you plant those this time of year?
You can. I have planted bare root hostas in late summer, but they do need to get an established root structure before the winter happens. But you definitely can plant live hosta plants at this time of year. That you can buy them. I was just at the Gardens Gate in Ottawa plant sale this past weekend. They had tons of hostas. You can plant them at any point. They'll come back, but you can buy them as a bare root plant. And I have done that. Usually they'll come midsummer, but you will want to let those have a good get established. But even if you plant them as a bare root, which looks like a bulb, but it looks like you're just planting a bare stick in the ground. So it's not quite a bulb, but it'll look like you're planting a bare stick in the ground, and it'll grow into a hosta. It's magic. Gardening is magic. So you can definitely do that, but you probably want a little bit more time to do a bare root. But you can plant a hosta right now and it'll last. Okay.
Well, I think that does all of the questions, Natalie. Thank you again for a wonderful program.
No problem.
And we will get to the summer bulbs as we get through this winter. You have another program coming up for us also this fall.
Yep, it'll be about preparing your garden for winter, and some things that you can do to make get a jump start on your spring almost, and get your garden really in the best shape to overwinter. And that could be anything from mulching certain places, or cutting down that foliage like we talked about with plants. So definitely, if you're interested in prepping your garden to really have a good jump start on spring, that would be a good program for you.
Okay, and Meg, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I think you wanted to share your screen again because it had some links on it.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Yes, thank you very much, Donna. Let's see. I need Natalie to let me share my screen real quick. I just wanted to throw up one last screen to show you guys those web links again. Here we go. Hopefully we can see it here. Sorry, this takes a bit, but there are, just to remind people that there's a couple links that they can go to in order to learn more about the programs, more about University of Illinois Extension, and just find some information on various horticulture topics, or if they're interested in the kinds of things that we do with our community. For me, hold on just a second here. I'm so sorry. Well, since I can't get it to pull on, if you just Google Illinois Extension, it's going to pull up the main web page for Extension in general. And on that page, there will be lots of information of all the different programs that you can, there we go, that you can look into, including the Master Gardener and the Master Naturalist program, and also our unit web page, extension.illinois.edu/BLMP. And you can also reach out to me if you have any questions or you want more information. And there, once again, is my email, meo@illinois.edu, or you can give us a call. We are seeing allowing the public back into our offices right now, but if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can certainly shoot me an email or give me a call. And I thank you, Donna and Natalie, in allowing me to share this. Hope everyone enjoyed the program.
Meg, thank you very much, and thank you everybody who attended. Thank you, Natalie. We will be sharing those links